And then also with Sedevacantism, sometimes they'll point out to canonical questions on the elevation of John the 23rd and others, and they'll say, oh, there was this going on in their life, so they weren't eligible to be the Pope. The problem with that is there's a very well-established doctrine called the peaceful and universal acceptance of the Pope that you can find in the preconciliar era. And this doctrine effectively says, even if you have some kind of canonical problem in the elevation of a pope, even if there is some funny business that went on in his election, or somehow there was something that made him ineligible to be the pope, if, however, he has been, if, however, the faithful as a whole, the universal as a whole, receive him as the pope, that will heal in the root any kind of canonical deficiencies and any impediments that were there. And that makes sense because the faithful as a whole cannot be deceived. Okay. Now, at the time of Pope Francis's election, was there this major uproar that he wasn't the Pope? No, there wasn't. I think that it was very clear that you have this peaceful and universal acceptance of his elevation to the papacy, even if he had some problems with his elevation in his election.
Five, the universal acceptance of the post-conciliar popes confirms that they are true popes. Response, circular argument. Heretics who are outside the church confirm as the head of the church another heretic who is outside the church. Nice if you can manage it. And besides, Sedevacantists reject the post-Vatican II popes. What are we, chopped liver? So the acceptance is clearly not universal. 6. It is impossible that so many Catholics could be wrong and only the Sedevacantists right. Response. There seems to be no reason why a false church might not become universal, even more universal than the true one, at least for a time. Look closely at each of the objections again. None of them even pertain to, still less defeat, the underlying principle for the Sedevacantist thesis, that a public heretic who lacks the faith of Peter cannot by divine law obtain the authority of Peter. These objections do not even remotely answer the argument that we have made in this video. To insist that they do is to whistle past the graveyard.
Second, to support their contention that a public heretic can be validly elected a true pope, thanks to universal peaceful recognition by the entire Church, Messrs. Salsa and Cisco quote large chunks from the writings of the Dominican theologian John of St. Thomas. But appealing to John of St. Thomas on universal peaceful recognition to validate the election of a heretic as pope is the one thing that Messrs. Salsa and Cisco cannot do. This is because a papal law in force at the time he was writing, Cum ex apostolatus officio of Paul IV, rendered such an election invalid, even with the unanimous consent of the cardinals and the obedience accorded the heretic pope by all. While traditionalists may dispute whether or not Cum ex apostolatus still applies now, there is no question that it was in force when John of St. Thomas was writing. So for the purpose of legitimizing a heretical pope, his comments on universal recognition must be treated as moot. So much for John of St. Thomas.